past July, I was in Cairo, Egypt, training Arab Christians in theology and apologetics. And before I left, I was able to pick up a souvenir. It's this Muslim dagger. And it's an antique. And I was pretty excited and amazed, actually, that I was able to get it through U.S. Customs. But on the sheath, it says here, it's got the Muslim confession of faith. It's called the Shahada. And it says, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." And this confession of faith really expresses a foundational doctrine in Islam, and that is the belief in one God. And so naturally many Christians will ask, well, do Muslims and Christians believe and worship the same God? And I have kind of two responses to this question. The first is to recognize that God is not God's name. God is simply the title of a position. The position is a what, but the person who fills that position is a who. And you can kind of think of it as people who are running for public office. You might have somebody who's running to become a senator or maybe even a governor. But a senator and a governor are the offices, or the title of the position. But it's a unique person who fills that position. And in the same way, Muslims and Christians both believe in the same what? A God who creates, who administrates his kingdom, and who judges. But they believe a different who is the person that fills that particular position of God. Now, in the case of Muslims, they believe this person is Allah, and with Christians, we believe it is, of course, Yahweh. Now, what's important to recognize is that these two individuals who we claim is fulfilling the office of God are radically different. They have fundamental differences in their nature and in their character, which precludes them from being the same person. And of course, naturally precludes us from worshiping the same God, therefore. So for example, in Islam, Allah is a Unitarian God. There is only one person in that God. Whereas in Christianity, we teach that Yahweh is a Trinitarian God, right? One God, one essence, one divine being, who coexists eternally in three persons, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Allah is transcendent, which means that he is separate from his creation. And of course, as Christians, we believe the same thing about Yahweh, that is, he is transcendent. But we also believe that in Christianity, that Yahweh is immanent. That means he enters into creation and reveals himself to his people. And of course, becoming Jesus Christ, or I should say, Jesus Christ taking on human flesh is an example of God making himself known to us. So we see these fundamental differences in the very nature and character of who that person is that fulfills and who occupies the office of God. And so that alone kind of demonstrates that we're talking about two different persons with regards to who Christians and Muslims worship. But there's actually a question that I believe resolves this entire debate fairly substantially. And here's the key question. Do Muslims worship Jesus as God? Well, the answer is no. Do Christians worship Jesus as God? The answer is yes. Therefore, Christians and Muslims do not worship the same God. Right? I mean, if I was to take a Muslim and introduce him to the Jesus that's described in the Gospels, right? I point to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I show them and describe to them the Jesus that's described there, right? He's born, he walks, he talks, he's able to perform miracles, he predicts his death and his resurrection, he dies, he rises again. And then I was going to ask a Muslim, do you believe this person who's described here in the Gospels, do you believe this person is the God that you worship? I promise you, every answer from any Muslim that you'll get will be the same, and that is no. And the reason why they can't believe that Jesus, that person, is God, is because for them to accept that Jesus is God and to worship him as God is to commit the most grievous sin in Islam, and that's called the sin of shirk. It's an unpardonable sin. I mean, you're basically guaranteed to go to hell if you die believing in shirk. And so for Christians, on the other hand, for us to worship Jesus as God is to commit, or is to engage in a profound act of worship. It's a supremely good act. And so this alone to me is very simple and straightforward, and it's the main reason why I reject the idea that Christians and Muslims worship the same God.